Hello there, my name is Will, and this is a video about my fish room and all of my aquariums. A little bit about me. I'm located in Littleton, Colorado, just south of Denver, and I've been keeping fish for about 2.5 years. So let's jump on in. Alrighty, we're going to start with a full pan of the fish room, and then I will go into all the tanks individually. Alrighty, we'll start over on the left with one of my smallest tanks. This is a little betta named one of the only fish in the fish room with a name. He is the blue morpho. Let me know if you get that name. I have had him for about 1.5 years. He did get pretty nasty fin rot, but has since recovered quite well. So he's in a little 5.5 gallon with a little aqua top hang on the back and a Nubius. Alrighty, so on the next tank I have a little kind of a faux bonsai tree with moss balls that I cut up and glued to a structure of sticks. I have some guppies in this tank. This is a 10-gallon tank, and I've kind of selected a lot of the yellow guppies and just kind of let them breed in this tank, and they just kind of keep doing their thing. Alrighty, in the next tank, another 5-gallon. I did have a betta in it, but he passed. In this tank I have lots and lots of little baby mutt guppies. So they're just kind of growing out in here. And if I find a betta that I like, he'll probably go in here, and the guppies will go in another tank. Alrighty, and this is some of the food that I use. A lot of the Fluval bug bites and spring and fall diet for the koi, and just some flakes. And yep, here is the 300-gallon stock tank, Rubbermaid stock tank pond in the basement, and I have 3 koi and 3 goldfish. The goldfish are fancy, but I don't know their names. They're kind of just dither fish. For the koi, because they were very scared when I first got them, I have a kohaku, a beko, and a lemon harawake. And they put on a fair amount of size since I got them about 1.5 years ago, and I got them from nextdaykoi.com. I believe that's right. But very fun pond to look at, and the fish have plenty of space to swim around for their current size. But obviously if the koi get real big, I will need to construct an outdoor pond of some kind. The filtration on here is this trash can is filled not to the brim, but has some lava rock in the bottom. I have an air stone in there just because algae loves this trash can. It follows this line and then goes into an FX6 and then returns through this little waterfall, and I have some more media in the waterfall, along with some pothos. Alrighty, so moving along to the rack with the big boys. Alrighty, so we will start up top with Mr. Pufferfish. The little puff is a green spotted puffer. Started out with 5 because they are wild caught and they often have parasites, and they don't always survive a quarantine process. And I had 1 that survived quarantine. So he's pretty happy. He's in a brackish tank 75 gallons all to himself. I constructed the kind of these branches, which are supposed to be kind of like a mangrove roots, out of PVC, and then they were painted and then covered with a aquarium-friendly epoxy. I kind of change up his rocks every once in a while because they do like to be stimulated and have kind of stuff to explore. But yeah, he's pretty happy, pasting the glass because he's hungry and he hasn't gotten any food. He eats mostly bloodworms, snails that I grow, and a shrimp and some ghost shrimp occasionally. So he will hunt some live ghost shrimp. That's about all the live feeding that I do in the fish room. Alright, so moving down below, this is a 40 breeder. Freshwater, kind of a hodgepodge of angels, guppies, might be a molly or two still in there, and got some albino coidoras, mostly just Anubias, and there's one plant which I don't know the name of off the top of my head. It's kind of got some reddish tones to it. My wife had originally picked that out for her tank, which we took down because we have a newborn to look after. So she didn't want to have to look after her own tank and the newborn, so I thought that made sense. So we kind of moved some fish around, and yeah. All right, moving on, we have a 10-gallon quarantine tank, and I do firmly believe in quarantining fish for at least 30 days. I try not to medicate if I don't have to, so my personal experience with medication has been never really works out the way you want to, and it's a risk to the fish, and it can oftentimes break the cycle on your tank, you know, sometimes depending on the medication, and that's never good. So I quarantine for 30 days and try not to use medicine. This is kind of my best practice. And one thing, we'll move back to the brackish 75. I do actually have a real mangrove growing through the top, just kind of rubber banded and clipped up there, and you can see the root coming down. It actually just got moved from the tidal hang on the back to the tank, so it needed some more room to grow. But I tried to have in all of my tanks, you can see even in this quarantine, I have a pothos at the top. Try to always include, even in the pond, some sort of plant to alleviate the bioload, and have the ecosystem be, you know, a little bit more natural. Alrighty, so now we move on to the saltwater tanks. And so I definitely started out with mostly an interest in freshwater, but one of my good buddies is really into saltwater, and definitely caught the bug, caught the aquarium bug in general, mostly over COVID. Great hobby to get into while you're stuck at home. And so I have two little black mollies in here, and they have been acclimated to full saltwater. And then I have some seaweed in here, the Caulerpa prolifera, and it grows like crazy. Always pulling it out. And this is this is a 20-gallon long, and is going to be my macroalgae tank. And it is powered by just Aqueon hang on the back. We got a nice Fluval heater. I like these heaters. They show you, they give you a number right there, so it's pretty accurate. And then this is just a simple Aqueon simple Aqueon planted tank, light. It's for a rimless tank, but I just kind of configured some little wood thing in the back and clipped it on. So that's a planted freshwater light, but is doing great on this saltwater tank. And so down below, we're going to move on to the 40-gallon breeder reef tank. And this is powered by a little Amazon wave maker, a Seachem Tidal hang on the back, and also a fluval heater in the back. And I have lots of the caulerpa growing around, always cutting it back. And recently I've started to get into corals. So got some zoas, starting out with zoas, testing for alkalinity now with all the other things I test for. But I will say, as my fish keeping has progressed, I test a little less and just as instinctively do water changes and adjust when I see fit or when I'm comfortable. But of course, testing will always give you the best data and let you know exactly, what your phosphates are, nitrates, etc. So in this tank I have 2 clowns. One is a snowflake, I believe, and one is a frostbite. And they were at my local fish store, Neptune's, which a lot of YouTube people know in the saltwater world. Neptune's, they have great stocking, lots of cool fish, and corals that have been growing in their tanks at the fish store for many, many years. So very impressive fish store, and that's where I got the clowns. I do have a Bengai cardinal fish and a firefish in the back who looks like he's out and about for filming. He likes to hide behind that rock in the back right. And then I also have plenty of mollies in this tank. This tank did suffer from quite the algae outbreak. Even with the caulerpa, kind of went crazy with algae, and that was even with a lot of water changes. So I introduced the mollies, and they really cleaned up the algae. So that's been something neat that I've done recently on this 40 breeder reef tank. Alrighty. And then moving on to my 29-gallon quarantine salt tank. It's kind of a quarantine hodgepodge. I've got a couple coral frags. You can see this these green little zoas. Right in the middle of their colony was an aptasia. So I split that little colony up and I pulled off what I could, and those are the resulting frags, and I'm pretty sure I got all the aptasia out. And this is also a molly who's been converted to saltwater, and I just thought he had really cool coloring. He's kind of white and gold on the body, and his fins are black, so really neat coloration on him. And then I also have a little fire shrimp down here who is being quarantined. So when he's done 30 days, he can go into the 40 breeder. Alrighty, so that's a little bit about each and all the tanks. I do have one tank that we will go check out upstairs, but another very important thing in fish keeping, as we all know, is water changes. And this is kind of my water change where I keep all my stuff. And so my process is I pull out water into 5-gallon jugs. So that's how I know how much water I'm pulling out. And then I mix it in these tubs. This guy is salt water, and this is for the fresh. So when I do say a water change on the pond, I go ahead and I just pump out into this 35-gallon trash can on wheels. And I have a pump on a hose, and then I've made a little hook with PVC and drilled some holes in the side, so I can basically pump water to wherever I need with these guys. So I will pump from the pond into the trash can, and then I will pump from the trash can into the sink over here, which this is really nice. I'm very fortunate to have this kind of wash sink over here to just dump stuff and dump the dirty water. Obviously nothing, try not to put any solids down the sink, like your rocks and stuff that get taken out, sometimes sucked up in the hoses. But yeah, and then refilling. So I will refill them from the sink, add my water conditioner. I use some prime, and then I'll let it sit. I'll let it mix. I'll let it sit for just a little bit and really let that prime do its thing before I chuck the water back in the aquarium. Because if something's toxic, say your chlorine, your chloramine, I'd rather it just never touch the fish. So I don't pour water straight from the hose into an aquarium from my sink. I let it mix first and let the prime do its thing, counteract those chemicals which are harmful to the fish. So that's one thing that I kind of, because I mix the water up for the salt water, I let it sit, I let it get to the right salinity, right temperature. I also have some heaters hanging up. It's always good to have an extra heater. But also I use these heaters for warming up water, just so the water is, pretty close in temperature to what it is in the aquarium. So also near this wash sink is my water station. Next to also my gym. My wife and I really like the Pelotons. I like my weights, but if you're gonna have to do some cardio, Peloton's pretty nice. But yeah, here is my RO station. Got this express water RO set up, and I do test the TDS, and I tee it off for drinking, and then also for pure RODI. So RODI goes to the big trash can here, and drinking gets teed off and goes through a alkalinity stage, which remineralizes the water and makes it less acidic for drinking. And then that goes down to this little tub down there, and that's where the water's stored. And then I get a little spigot, pumps out of the wash sink. So that's how I get my water without my fluoride and all my other chemicals that hurt the fish. We don't need to be drinking that either. So I am a big believer in good, clean water that has minerals in it. And water is very important for life. So it's best if it's pure. So this is kind of my basement. I love to ski. I'd give a shout out to one of my favorite mountains lately, Monarch. Really fun times down there in Salida, Colorado. Really great resort. But yeah, we love to ski in Colorado. But this has been a fish tour video, my first fish tour. And hopefully there will be more updates and more fish tours to come as I change things around, change my interest, and of course, keeping and caring for fish, making sure they live a nice and happy life, and that I am also learning from them and how to take care of them, and studying them. They're very interesting creatures. So, almost forgot. We are going to go up to the upstairs tank. I have one tank in the upstairs portion of the house. This is my 29-gallon freshwater aquarium, and it has two angels, a breeding pair, and they recently had some babies, and the fry are swimming all around, which you can kind of see them there. They're very protective of them. This is the furthest they've gotten with a set of fry. Previously, they would eat them and just not be very good parents. But the goal here is not to really breed for profit, but to just watch them raise their young. And if I get some fry that are raised, I can give them to some friends, maybe a local fish store. But really just to see how these angelfish raise their fry. And then I also have one Corydoras in here, a little Julii Cory, and he's right back there behind a moss ball. And this is kind of the one of my tanks that I did kind of themed, and this is kind of an Asian themed tank. My wife and I traveled to Japan and China a couple of years ago, so this is kind of our Asia themed room. So they got a little Asian themed tank. Alrighty, so that has been a tour of all my tanks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will tune in next time to another fish-related video. At this point, I'm not sure what I'll call the channel. I probably will put some footage and photos on Instagram as well, so probably a little YouTube and Insta combo, just kind of documenting my fish keeping and you know, trials and errors, but also the joys and the cool things. So thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next time.